Hey, it's Ian. How's it going? Um, all right. Today, I regret to inform you that if you like the album Underwater Moonlight by the Soft Boys, you need to purchase an original edition. And here, you probably already know that, honestly, but I am going to do a track by track comparison of Underwater Moonlight with the most recent reissue. This most recent reissue is from Yep Roc. It's from, oh, I thought it'd be on here. Isn't it 2011? I think this is from 2011. So something like 11 years old, this reissue is. So, anyone who's paid attention knows that this is it's problematic. I do want to also say that it's not maybe quite as problematic as it's made out to be. But if you like this album, if you love this album like I do, this isn't going to cut it. So let's look at a couple differences first. The first is just the color, and do my best. So it's hard to know to what degree this is about age, right? So this is a 42-year-old piece of paper, a piece of cardboard. This is I got this in the last 5 years. I don't know if it was produced in 2011 or if it was produced something like 5 years ago. But anyway, the original is just darker, and then the script down here is lighter. The wording is lighter. So there's that difference. It definitely gives a different sort of vibe to the cover. Let's look at then the piece of wax itself. Oh, how am I going to stop stuff from blowing away? So the more recent reissue is a thick slab of wax. It's pretty rigid. So there's that. Although mine has a bit of a, what's that called, a bowl warp or a dish warp. But it's otherwise it's a good physical product. Like, there's nothing really wrong with the physical product per se. But the then the original. This is your classic 1980 standard weight, flexi disc, practically, 90 gram vinyl. But I don't know if I'm going to say that I like that or that I prefer that or anything like that. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with thin vinyl. I do feel like the whole 180 gram thing is a bit of a I don't know, scam is maybe going too far, but I don't know, there's nothing wrong with having a wiggly disc. I think that's fine. Okay, so that's the physical product. Let's now talk about track by track. I listened to them both last night. I couldn't sleep. I stayed up late, and I listened to track 1 on the newer reissue, and then I listened to track 1 on the original pressing, the original UK pressing. So what I want to say in general, especially on the first side, that the Yep Roc, that's the most recent reissue, the Yep Roc reissue, doesn't sound as bad as people make it out to be. It's inferior, no doubt about it. And like I said, if you like this album, you should get the original. But it's not like it's unlistenable. You drop the needle and you're not thinking this is bullshit. No, you drop the needle and it's like, okay, it's the album. I can listen to this. This works. What else? So it doesn't sound bad, but it's just the original one sounds good. It's not that the current reissue is bad. It's just the original is good. Having said that, it's overall not an insanely good sounding album, right? It's not, we're not talking Dark Side of the Moon or whatever here. It's okay. It's solid. It's not a bad sounding album, but it's not an insanely good sounding album either. Okay, so I Want to Destroy You, the first song, the most sort of iconic song in the album, and this is the album where you maybe expect the most difference. It's just such a well-known song. For them, at least. And what's interesting is that is maybe the song with the least amount of difference. Another reason why you might expect a big difference is that it being the first song, it's on the outer reaches of, it's in that zone where the record sounds the best for the most part, is on the outer, the record is traveling at a higher same RPMs but a higher speed past the needle compared to the inside. You know the idea. Anyway, so what did I write down? I wrote wall of sound, no big difference, and I can't read what I wrote there. But anyway, it's kind of a wall of sound song. There's not a lot of dynamics in this song, and that's kind of the main reason why there's not that big of a difference. Oh yeah, you can hear the ride better in the original one. Okay, so which is nice if you want to hear the ride better. But this is the song with the least amount of difference because it's the song with the least amount of dynamics, I think. All right, and so then when you get to Kingdom of Love, the second song, that's where it really starts to, the differences start to shine. I wrote that the guitars are more percussive when palm muting, right? So they're using Fenders, that single coil Fenders, Tellys and Strats, and when you palm mute those things, there's kind of a percussive effect that doesn't come through in the newer reissue, but does come through in the original. This is going to get a little bit out of order here, but I forgot to mention the original master tape appears to be missing, is my understanding, and you can go into the history of edits on Discogs of the newest reissue, the Yep Roc reissue, and people have talked about over the years what they've sort of figured out, and apparently there was somewhere, maybe a Reddit or somewhere, where Robin Hitchcock actually chimed in about here's what this is, and he said something like they couldn't find any tapes, and then they found one that Morris Windsor had, and that's what they used. And that for a while, someone had changed the status of this album to being a mono. That this reissue was mono, and that's actually not true. And I included that in my mono episode. So my apologies that I didn't do due diligence and check to see if that's true or not. It's not true. However, what is true is that the stereo separation in the original is way better than the Yep Roc reissue. So I don't know what that tape was that Morris Windsor had, but it was maybe some kind of EQ'd copy of the original that has less stereo separation somehow and less high end, or so that something's up with that tape is what I'm getting at. And you need the one that's cut from the original tape or whatever original source they use. So anyway, you get the Kingdom of Love. Yeah, the guitars are more percussive. There's more stereo separation, and that's when it really starts to come out in Kingdom of Love. You can hear the reverb better. That speaks to the better high-end response. And then that sense of a bigger, deeper sound stage. That's when that really starts to come out in Kingdom of Love. You don't hear it so much on the first track, but in Kingdom of Love, you really hear it. There's also an argument that where Kingdom of Love is located on the disc physically, that's maybe even a more prime spot for good sound in terms of the orientation of the cartridge. Next song, Positive Vibrations, I wrote, more high end again, increased separation of instruments. That's where that really starts to shine, is in Positive Vibrations, where you can really just hear that it's not just a big muddled mess. You hear distinct instruments. You can hear the high end of the guitar and the overtones of the toms. Again, that speaks to the improved superior high-end response of the original compared to the 2011 Yep Roc reissue. I got the hots. What I wrote down is this increased sense of being in the room. Again, that speaks to sort of the sound stage and the separation of instruments. The bass is much more audible in this one. Yet again, I think that's a high-end response thing, that you hear that detail because of the high end, and the vocal reverb also comes through more in the original. Insanely Jealous, I wrote more hi-hat driven. That's what's going on in that song. It's got the 16th notes or whatever. I don't know how to fucking read music. Is it 16th notes? I don't know. That just comes out more, that the hi-hats are driving the song along, because of that increased high end. Probably it just brings them out further, and it becomes more sort of uplifting. More personality to the vocals. They sound less blah. They sound more like a real person. Room sound with guitar during the bass scales. Yeah, there's that section in Insanely Jealous where the bass starts playing those scales, right? And there's the lead guitar, probably Kimberly Rue, does that sort of really kind kind of crazy psychedelic soundscape kind of guitar lead sort of thing, and that just the room sound in that just brings that more to life. Overall, far more dramatic / dynamic is what I wrote. And yeah, so what I wrote was all throughout the first side. The Yep Roc reissue doesn't sound bad. Yeah, so that's what I would notice is that, like, I'd listen to the first song on the Yep Roc and then the first song on the original, and then when it was time to switch back to the Yep Roc for the second song, I expected to be like, okay, now that I'm used to the good sound of the original, I'm going to go back to the Yep Roc and it's going to sound like bullshit. But I didn't experience that. It wasn't, again, like, it's not that it sounds that horrible. It's listenable. It doesn't like strike you right away as that like this sounds like bullshit. It's just that only in comparison to the original. Second side. Oh yeah, but right. That changed somehow on the second side, and I don't know if it was a cumulative effect or if the second side is somehow truly worse than the first side. But on the second side, I did start to get this sense that the Yep Roc actually doesn't sound that good, to sort of contradict what I've been saying up until now. So it's more for whatever reason, this first side seemed to me to sound better on the Yep Roc than the second side. So getting into the second side, the first song, Tonight, there's a violin on that song that I actually never really even noticed that there was a violin on that song until I heard the original pressing. And there's a violin, tons of attack, that's that high end, that's what I'm talking about with the guitars, the palm muting. There's this more attack to the sound, explosive backing vocals. That's what they sound like. You'll have to go sideways. I noticed the stereo separation a lot more. That's the only note that I put. And then the old pervert. That's the stereo drums. That you get this sort of like tick-tock effect from what Morris Winter is playing. So, like that comes out in the original, doesn't come out so much in the Yep Roc. I think that's maybe where people started to get the idea of like, wait a minute, is this mono? Because the stereo separation isn't as good, but it's there. It is stereo. Layered vocals, yeah, you can, and you get that separation of vocals but they're layered. So you get this layered, but also the separation at the same time just makes for a more dramatic effect. And then the percussive palm muted guitar again, like that attack you get, especially with the Fender guitars when you palm mute. Queen of Eyes, the intro is huge. The intro sounds really huge on the original. Vocal separation of vocals and the bigness. And then finally, the title track, Underwater Moonlight. I wrote that it suffers a bit from being in the inner ring, but the guitar itself is transcendent. All right, which brings me to one more thing I wanted to show you about this, which I thought was really interesting. The freaking wind is blowing everything all over the place here, and I don't know how well this is going to show up with the light. But let's see if I can. There we go. You can see where the cut goes to. Like, it goes pretty close to the, not like abnormally or dangerously close to the center label, but like, it takes up the whole thing, right? That's on the original. So that tells you that there's like, that maybe the grooves themselves are wider, and so such that, meaning that like maybe there's more bass for that reason. And what are the other benefits of just having grooves that are more kind of spread apart? I don't know. But let's look now at the Yep Roc reissue. And so I don't know if you can see, but like the grooves end much sooner. There's much more space between the last groove and the label. All right, so the grooves are more tightly packed. What does it all mean? Well, this I'm pretty sure is a GZ pressing, and I found out through some good comments on my Don Grossinger interview, who cut DMM for many years, that GZ has like a whole shit ton of DMM lathes, like 5 or 6, I can't remember. And so if this was cut by GZ, if Yep Roc sent GZ the material to cut the master disc from, is it DMM? There's no evidence on here that it is, but that was on my mind as I noticed that issue with where the rings end and where the grooves end, and that would make sense if it were, I'd say. And you know, the lack of high-end response though tends to sort of speak against that. So hard to say. Anyway, everything's blown away. I better end it there. So if you're into Underwater Moonlight, you probably knew that, but here I've concretely unpacked for you why you need to get an original pressing of that. They're expensive. I was lucky to get one for way less than what they're normally going for. I even was able to talk the guy down a little bit. It's got a little bit of a crease on a little bit of a cosmetic issue here on the cover, whatever these things are called. But so that's what you try to do, is like try to find like a good plus to VG cover, but like a great disc, and you can get it for a little bit cheaper, but they're still kind of expensive. But that's what you got to do if you want to really hear the real Underwater Moonlight and enjoy it as it's supposed to be. Okay, thanks. So long.